You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. If you trade options, you want to be smart about every decision. So why not choose the smartest platform for your trades? At Public.com, you can view upcoming earnings dates directly in the options chain. You can queue and execute multiple orders simultaneously. Easily view contract performance over time. And if you have a question about any stock, you can ask Alpha, their AI for investors. But want to know the smartest part of trading options on Public? Earning rebates on every single contract traded. No other platform provides options trading rebates, and they reduce your trading costs to less than $0 per trade. So, make the smart move and switch. The only options trading platform where you can earn rebates on every single contract traded. To learn more, please visit public.com/optionblock. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. U.S. members only. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back here one final time for the mad, insane year that has been 2024. Insane. Just wild to say out loud that this is our final show for the year, but that is indeed the case. Hope you're having a good wrap up to your trading year. Hope you're having a good holiday season wherever you are, whatever the heck it is you celebrate. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Hopefully you know that by now. You've been listening, hopefully, all year, if not indeed coming up on 18 years, which is wild. Another wild thing to say out loud. I got some fun stuff planned for the new year on the network, so stay tuned for all that fun in a little bit. And also stay tuned for our final 80s trivia challenge of the year. The question remains, can the Rock Lobster dig himself out of the massive hole that is entirely of his own making that he has dug himself into? We shall find out, listeners, because we are joined on the program one final time for this new year by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Gentlemen, get your hands on your buzzers because it is time for our final 80s trivia challenge of the year. Here we go. All right, I'm actually going to kick this one off, listeners, with a bit of a story. 80s trivia story time, if you will, because it leads into the question. It was the inspiration for the question, if you will. End of the year, people are going out, picking up deals and all kinds of stuff. People are also looking at maybe, like, let's say cars. It's a good time to buy a car, but people are motivated to sell. So we've been looking at and eyeing maybe adding a new car to the Longo fleet, if you will, which stands at 1 right now. So, not quite a fleet yet. But we're eyeballing on. My family has kind of gotten intrigued by Jeeps, by the Jeep brand, by the Jeep line. We've taken a few for rentals over the years, and we've liked it. We've enjoyed it. So I thought, end of the year, Jeep's kind of a bit of a dumpster fire company sitting on a mountain of inventory. Let's go in, see what we can make happen over there. So we went over there. We had some models in mind, went to a dealer out in the suburbs that had a legion of these things sitting on the lot, and I do mean sitting on the lot. They had been there for closing in on a year and a half, some of these models we were looking at. So I think they'd be pretty motivated to sell. So we go and take a couple test drives. We like what we find. They have a nice price on one of them, but it's been sitting out in the lot for a year and a half. It's been rained on. It's all kind of looks stained, doesn't look great. Looks like it has a few miles on it, but just some test drives. I said, that's a good price we have on that one on the lot. How about, I see you have a nice one. That's actually the color I want on the showroom, brand new, untouched. How about I get that price, and the list price you have on the showroom is much higher one. Give me that price on the one on the showroom. We'll call it a deal. I'll take this car off your hands that has been sitting on the lot for a year and a half almost. So the guy says, okay, you can go talk to my manager like they do, you're sitting down. They come back from the manager a few minutes later, and I'm expecting, I told him my price. It's well below the list price. I expect him to come in somewhere between the sticker price and where I am. Instead, no. He sits down and says, there you go. And it's the sticker price plus, I'd say, about 10%. He moved completely in the other direction. I just looked at the price and said, you're going the wrong way. He said, yeah, I know, we got this, and that. I said, you do realize this car has been here for a year, and I looked around the showroom, there's nobody else there. I said, if I walk out of here, there's nobody else coming for this car. You're moving away from my price, not closer. I don't think you understand basic negotiations. So I said, okay, I'll stand up. Once I stand up to get ready to go, that's when the manager will come out. They'll stop me. They'll realize they're being insane. And they will say, okay, sir, we'll make some sort of better offer. I stand up. They say, okay, thanks. I start walking towards the door. A manager walks up, opens the door for me so I could walk out. And I just walked out just completely flummoxed. I've been around markets, negotiation, making markets, price discovery for a lot of my adult life. I've never had a negotiation like that where they just completely went the other way. They just didn't even want to play. It was kind of surprising. So anyway, I bring all that around. Long way to go around. 2, Jeep was actually inspired. The name Jeep was taken from an old cartoon from the 30s and 40s. That's where the World War II era Jeep gets its name from. It's actually a cartoon character, which was made into, getting to the 80s, a modern day, quote unquote modern day, an 80s live action remake starring Robin Williams. All right, Andrew, you buzz, so you get to go first. What do you got, sir?
Oh, well, you know what? I just took a flyer, I buzzed, and I said, you're looking for a Jeep, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee came out in the 80s. So that was my answer to the question I had no idea.
Alas, no. You buzzed early. That's usually a good strategy. Today, not so much, because it was a part of a more lengthy tale. So, Uncle Mike, you get to come in and steal. What cartoon was made into a live action remake? I believe it was actually the year 1980, starring Robin Williams. That was the inspiration for the name Jeep.
Oh gosh, I have no Beetle Bailey.
Not a bad guess, actually. I don't know if there was a live action. Maybe, was there a live action Beetle Bailey? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Popeye, the character of Jeep actually comes from Popeye back in the 30s and 40s, which is kind of weird. So yeah, that's where the name the Jeep comes from back in the 40s. Long way to get there, listeners. But I had this experience this weekend. I was so flummoxed. I've never seen a salesperson not want to deal, but go up. There's a warning to you, listeners. If you go into a Jeep dealership looking to deal and they're sitting on, you hear all the stories of they're a dumpster fire company, they're sitting on mountains of inventory, which they are. I think the reason they're sitting on all of it, because when you go in to make an offer, they raise their sticker price. Oh, someone's finally here after a year and a half who wants this car. And it's time to raise the price. But I digress. Let's see if the markets are raising or if they are crashing. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
See, if Andrew had just listened to my story, he would have had a handle on how to come to grips with this final question of the year. We will reveal the results on our next week, probably, listeners, when we have it all tallied up. Maybe we'll do it if we come back later this week. We shall see. But we will reveal the results shortly, who won. I don't think it's much of a mystery, but we will see how much that person won by. No points this week, obviously. Are there any points for this market today? Well, if you like a market that's came out of the gate hot and in the wrong direction, then you were a happy camper today. S&P started off selling off hard. We got down way below 5,900. It's like 5,870 was the level we hit before the bulls, the Uncle Mike and his company, his Uncle Mike little Facebook group, they all said, hey, we're bulls. We're supposed to buy this thing. And that's when they started turning it around. So his conspiracy to turn the market began right there around 5,870. And they've lifted it back up now. We're at about 59.35 or so as we kicked off the show. Still down about 35 handles or about 0.6%, but not quite as blood red as we were earlier today. We have the Dow right now off about 6/10. Actually, everything's off about 0.6%. So that's pretty much where the market is hanging out right now. Is this just the pause before we start heading back down? Or are we going to just wipe out all this red and end the day and pretty much come end of the year, of course, pretty solidly in the green? VIX certainly in the green today, 1685 or so right now. That puts it down about 0.9 from where it was this time about exactly a week ago. We were obviously off for Thursday last week. We got as high intraday out there in VIX land. We hit a 19 handle out there, listeners. So VIX was popping. VIX was popping. Markets were melting down earlier today. Of course, right as we kick off the show is when it seems like calmer, cooler, saner heads are prevailing out there. VVIX, as we kicked off the show, a 100 even, down 11 points from where we were this time a week ago. All right, there were no winners, so I'll just go with our presumed winner for the year until we have an official tally. Mr. Uncle Mike, if you have any enduring memories of Popeye, the horrible movie that was Popeye in the 80s, I don't know, maybe you love it. It's not one of my favorites. Or indeed Jeep, or anything else catching your eye in this final episode of the year, sir, let us know. And then B, what's catching your eye in a non-Uncle Mike type of day?
Well, I mean, your story is very interesting. It sounds more like a divorce negotiation than a car negotiation.
It was wild. I've never experienced anything like that. They don't even want to play. They just raised the price. I was so dumbfounded. I kind of just, okay, I just kind of stood up. Like, what else do you say to that? You're obviously not here to play. You don't understand the game we're playing. I'm playing baseball. You're playing crochet. You're doing something completely different.
Well, the best part is the manager actually held the door
open for me. Didn't say, no, actually, sir, what we meant to offer you is this. No, he held the door open for me. Unbelievable. But I digress, sir. Go ahead.
They want their price, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I never saw the Popeye movie that from 1980. I vaguely remember seeing something about it, but I never saw it, so I can't really comment on that. Definitely was a Popeye fan growing up. He eats his spinach. I mean, I even saw something online a while ago where it shows a house that's totally ransacked and Popeye and Olive Oil are getting kicked out of the house. And then Olive Oil says to Popeye, you just had to try the spinach artichoke dip, didn't you? And I always thought that was pretty funny because spinach artichoke dip made Popeye freak out.
He went crazy.
And totally. And, he's strong to the finish because he eats his spinach. So, yeah, definitely a Popeye fan. But in terms of this market, the market got a little bit of spinach shortly after the open. Bluto was beating the living tar out of this market earlier in the day. And then just I'm convinced that's what it was, because right around 9:30 Chicago time, Popeye went in and fed the market some spinach, and I'm just looking at the low of the day for the S&P, 58.69. We're at 59.39 right now. So this exactly looks like a Popeye cartoon today, getting the crap kicked out of him by Bluto, and then eats his spinach, and then it's going up all as well. So looking at that, that's what we're seeing from today. I mean, I think just towards the end of the year, where there's not a lot of trading volume, there can be a lot of intraday movement in the markets because it doesn't take as many buy orders or sell orders to move the market. So I think that's what we're seeing last week and this week. I still do believe that we got a chance at holding close to my magnet prediction for the year, right around the 6,000 level. So if we get back what we got today or what we've lost today, and then maybe get a few more points tomorrow, then we do have a shot at doing that. We had a really big year on the year this year. And so that's could be what's happening. Bonds are catching a little bit of a bid today, but they're just kind of hanging out where they're at. The Fed news has really not done a lot to the bond market, so we don't get a lot of movement there. Silver's down a little bit today. And then just looking at, excuse me, a few individual names, Apple's still hanging around the 250 mark. So we do have that. Microsoft is becoming fairly volatile in that it was going up. It was down. It was up near the 450 mark. Now it's back in the mid 420s. Microsoft is, someone needs to tell Microsoft that's ticker symbol is MSFT, not NVDA lately, just with all the movement with which it's been having. So we do have that. And then in terms of some other individual names with which you like to look at, NVIDIA is up 2% on the day, so that's kind of a boring day for NVIDIA. Just not a ton of bigger things, just a little bit of a down day today. And are we doing 2025 predictions yet?
If you want to start them off now, you can. I wasn't planning on it. If you have some you got to get off your chest, have at it.
Just one. Bitcoin, 45,000.
Ooh, Uncle Mike. Okay, I'll put you down on the record book. So it closes next year, the end of next year.
It will. Let me rephrase that. It will touch 45,000 next year. I will say that.
Okay, that's a good thing I clarified that. All right, I will make note of that as the Rock Lobster goes. If he has any enduring memories of Popeye, which was a contemporary cartoon for him growing up in the early 40s, and then B, whatever else is catching his eye out there, have at it.
I do remember Popeye cartoons, but I don't think they were the 40s, were they?
Actually, I think they started in I think the comics
probably did. I mean, I thought, man, well, maybe I was watching reruns by then. Who knows? Anyway, I would have to say no enduring. I did not see the movie. It wasn't like Shelley Duvall as Olive Oil.
Yes, she was Olive Oil.
I want to say like she had a big couple years there. She was Olive Oil. She was in The Shining. And maybe those two movie roles were so shocking to her, she left Hollywood and never came back again.
I think that...
Wasn't she Coach's wife on Coach? Hayden Fox's wife?
I don't think that was Shelley Duvall, was it? I don't think so.
I don't know. I would have to Google that. That would make a good trivia question.
You're right, it would.
I try to be funny if I can.
No, it was not Shelley Duvall. Shelley Fabares.
Oh, there you go.
Fabares. There you go.
Look at you going deep on the
Shelley Fabares lady.
Ah, yes, of course. Who can forget Shelley Fabares?
Whoever she is. But
we're going deep. Have at it, Mr. Rock Lobster.
Yeah, so I can't really say anything about Popeye. Now, the second question you asked is, what are the things that happened in 2024 that I liked, or what will be happening in 2025?
I said, what are you catching your eye today? Uncle Mike was giving predictions for next year. If you want to do that now, you could save it for next week.
Yeah, I guess it's our last show for the year. What caught my eye today was the market looked terrible this morning, and now all the vol futures are back to even. So VXX down on the day. The short vol products, I think, are slightly up on the day. Usually, although this is showtime now, it's not going to help people, but normally when the vol products get back to even so fast, SPX ends up catching up and bouncing and recovering. So I would say that is certainly possible, for today and maybe even going into the end of the year. There was something like, now you're seeing more headlines about the Treasury. Let's see, Biden apparently wasn't really the president for the last 4 years. What else? Yellen spent $7 trillion in short-term notes, like all kinds of stuff that just makes it like, I think they're trying to front load the beginning of the next administration with all these problems or whatever. And I think the algos just sell the market. They're like, this is all catastrophic. And then the market sells off, and all of a sudden, and then everybody's like, there's no follow through. And then I think that's what we have. So I think that's the, from an observational point of view, at least for today, Option Pit is dark. So we have no live classes this week, not until Friday. just because the 2 holidays are in the middle and all that. So, and that would, again, it would not surprise me that VIX ends up being down on the day, because if we can't, you see these news snippets, and if the sell-offs don't hold, we generally rally back. So that's what I would say for the action that we have today, except for apparently natural gas futures think we're going to have the coldest winter since last winter today. That's the only other thing I would notice. Nat gas is taking off. Boyle, that ETF, that's a leveraged nat gas ETF, is up 16% today. So again, it doesn't look like the conditions are any colder this winter than last winter, yet somehow it's enough to drive natural gas futures up a ton this morning. Go figure.
Look at you talking nat gas. You've been listening to our TWIFO show too much. You're getting lured into the dark side that is nat gas, which is nigh on inescapable these days. Listeners, is this market inescapable today, listeners? Are we seeing just massive explosions of volume kind of across the board? Once again, listeners, as I say quite often, I've said throughout this year, I will say one final time for the year, it really depends where you're hanging your hat in this market, what kind of day you're having. Once again, if you're hanging out in VIX, if you're saying, man, we're selling off hard, we're seeing a bit of a whipsaw action now, these are usually catalysts that lead to some VIX paper. I expect an explosion of VIX action out there today, 600, 800,000, maybe threatening 1 million contracts. You would be sadly mistaken. 227,000 contracts only on the tape in VIX, which is wild when you hear some of the other numbers I'm about to throw at you, that VIX is still so sleepy. The ADV is 686, so getting back down to a level that probably should be at this time of year, if not lower. The big dog out there today, such as it is, 27,000 of the Jan 15 puts. That's the big dog out there in VIX land today. Jan 15 puts going up for, it's like 20 cents. So there you go, listeners. You like those? You're a buyer at that level? 20 cents, that's the big dog out there today. Then now SPY, you might say, well, if VIX is only doing 227, SPY's got to be like 3 3/4, 3.5, something like. Nope, 6.65 million contracts on the tape for SPY. So SPY woke up. SPY is delivering the goods out there today. The ADV is 6.95. It's almost there already, listeners. So SPY on the warpath. Same thing for that's looking pretty hot out there right now. 2.15 million contracts on the tape for the S, so well north of where they usually are this time of the show. The ADV, 3.04 million. Not going to get there by the end of the show, but probably will get there today, seems like. Small caps also on fire again. Almost 1 million contracts already on the tape for small caps. 993. The ADV is right around 1.5 million. Certainly seems like we're going to hit that today. And the Q saying, don't forget about me, 2.75 million contracts on the tape. For your beloved Q's listeners, the ADV 3.98 million. So yeah, seems like they're going to get there today as well. So all of those, you run all those numbers, you say, man, it's a banger day with the exception of VIX. Once again, VIX just not playing, which is interesting because we did see some intraday whipsaw action in VIX. So that usually leads to a little bit of paper. But all the VIX heads, whether it's the folks in France still on holiday or the folks out there in other regions on holiday, for whatever reason, the VIX folks not playing today, which is kind of fascinating. Let's see, is the rest of the options market playing, listeners? Are we seeing a banger day out there in single names? The answer is not really. 210,000. Now, in the context of it being the final show of the year, that's actually a pretty impressive number. Usually it's a pretty light seasonal period. But given everything we're seeing out there, market action today, it's actually not that much. 210 gets us to our old pal Coinbase. Obviously, they've had a banger year, up 64% on the year. So a good year for Coinbase. Not a great end to the year, though. Off about $8.50, a little over 3%, trading 257.25. So getting all that, I think you'll be happy to gain 60-odd% just to give 3 back at the end of the year. I think that's a trade most people would do. But if you're just sitting there holding, saying, man, I want all my gains throughout the year, you just gave back a little over 3% out there in Coinbase. Number 10, 210,000 contracts. Number 9, man, it seems like this name just can't get out of its own way. This is Boeing. Our former neighbors across the street. I do miss their delicious cafeteria lunches and their rockin' barbecues on the river they used to have with music and barbecue and pulled pork, all kinds of stuff on Wednesdays, I believe it was. None of that anymore. I believe they're down in Newport News or somewhere near in the Virginia region now. But Boeing looking kind of rough again today. 176.90 off about nearly $4, a little over 2%. It's like whenever there's some sort of aviation disaster, fingers inevitably point towards Boeing, and that is the case right now. Though if you want to go glass half full, they were down to 170, pretty much even today before rallying back nearly 7 handles. So looking a little better than they were this morning. Either way, number 9, 221,000 contracts is Boeing. Number 8, the Amazonians, 221.70 off a little over $2 or about 1%. Good for number 8, 235,000 contracts on the tape. Number 7, our old pal Mara, 17.72 off 72 cents, nearly 4%. So Mara threatening the 30 handle so many times this year, and then coming right back down to end the year at the lower end of its range, right around a 15. This name, I've talked about how range bound it has been for years. Looking at this chart, it has done that exactly again this year. It had sold off to 15 almost exactly in January, rallied up to about exactly 30 in February, back down to about almost a little bit below 15, 14.63 in April. Back up to 27 in July, back down to 13. So it broke a little bit below 15 in September, 13.37. And then back up to about $28 in November, and then right back down to where we are again. If you were just trading that 15 to 30 range back and forth in Mara this year, you had another good year. Number 7, 270,000 contracts on the tape for Mara. Number 6, AMD, 291,000 contracts, 123.40 off about $1.75 or about 1.5%. Good for number 6. Number 5, Palantir, 78.5 off about $0.50 or about almost 1%. They got down to as low as 76.11 this morning, so obviously they have bounced off that low. Their high 79.25, so hanging out closer to that at least right now. Number 5, Palantir, 356,000 contracts on the tape. Number 4 is the Fruit Company, 252.92 off about 270 or about 1% today. Good for number 4, 389,000. That shows you how light we are in single names. We're all the way up to number 4, only 389,000 contracts on the tape. Number 3, it's the monster, aka MicroStrategy. Number 3, 583,000 contracts on the tape, 313.88 off a little over $16 or about almost 5% on the day. They've had a range of 301.75 on the low end and 320 pretty much even on the high end. So a wild day for MicroStrategy. All that translating into 583,000 contracts. And the number 3 spot, number 2, it's Tesla. A lot of back and forth about Musk and his role. What role should he have in the administration? Should people be paying money to influence elections like this? Some of the Republicans seem like now bristling at Musk's thoughts on H1B1. All sorts of fun happening. And the new administration hasn't even kicked off yet. Tesla looks like feeling some of that today, 422.25. Off $9.50, a little over 2%. Obviously, they're still on quite the run since they took off from nearly $200 right before Halloween. They're up over $200. They were $213.65 then, $422 right now. So it's been, I think, a good run. I think you could say Musk made a good investment there. Number 2, 1.03 million, and number 1, Nvidia, 2.01 million, 139.41, up 240 or about 1.75% for the number 1 spot. Again, barely over 2 million. For Nvidia. You know, things are kind of light. Speaking of light, not much to speak of this week on the earnings front. What kind of a monster is putting out earnings in either the Christmas week or New Year's week? The answer is really nobody. So not a ton of earnings on the docket this week. Looking at the final numbers for our final cycle of the year on the earnings front, listeners, we came in at 121%. So a lot of people, I know Matt, who runs these numbers for us, was expecting at some point for this blistering hot pace to cool, maybe towards the middle or second half of this year, and we start seeing earnings vol come in a little bit, maybe get back below our longer term average. That has not been the case. We have exceeded it pretty much every quarter, every cycle this year. And it seems like if the trend is your friend, it's going to continue. I mean, we've been looking for this to turn around now. We're at 121%. This cycle, a long-term average, 114%. It's obviously going to tick up after this. So at what point will it come in? We shall see, listeners. Last time Trump took office, vol went to die. That the case again? I don't think anyone wants that, but I suppose we shall see, unless you're loading up on a boatload of downside puts and VIX, in which case you're cheering for that to happen. Are you also cheering for some weird and or wild activity? In which case, you're going to be a happy camper, listeners, because it's time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. One final time here for the mad year that is 2024. And you know what? They don't get much weirder than this kind of name, listen. Another one of these just a weirdo out of nowhere oddballs, which is kind of what the Odd Block is all about, listeners. Let's wrap it up with our final three names for the year. Let's go out to, first off, newcomer to the show and indeed to the network. This is Ocean Power Technologies, Inc., ticker symbol OPTT, OPTT. Having a banger day today. 78 cents, up 30 cents. So that's about 65%. So just a banger out here in Ocean Power Technologies. Don't ask me what they do. Are they tidal power or something? Who knows? I can't see what they're doing here. But so they are on the rampage. Let's look at them over the past year, see what they've been up to. They were 15 cents about a month ago. I love these names. When you can buy the Forever Call for 15 cents. There you go. You get all you wanted. It shot up, looks like the first time, November 29th, to 50 cents. And then right back down again to about 35 cents. Was hovering there. And now this next leg up here. Let's see, a year ago, this thing was trading at 31 cents. So it had some brief flirtations. It hit 51 cents in July. So it's had a little bit of a wild year out here. I'm not sure what their ocean power is. They have follow-on orders. Oh, a power. It is a power. It is tidal power. Okay, that's kind of what I thought. So they have a buoy, looks like, and obviously as the tide raises and lowers, that can generate power. All right, interesting. Interesting stuff out here. But Mr. Rock Lobster, equally interesting is our paper. These kind of things just make me chuckle. And what better way to go out on the year than trades that make me chuckle? This morning, when the stock was 68 cents, someone came in and said, you know what? I'm a little bit dubious of this 68 cent level. I'm feeling uncomfortable at these lofty highs of 68 cents. I feel the need to hedge. And they said, Feb half puts. You see where I'm going with this. Feb half puts, how are they? They got 15 cents at 20. They said, done, I will pay 20 cents 2,000 times for the privilege of hedging my 68 cent stock through the lofty month of February. So yes, listeners, they paid 20 cents, 28% of the value of the stock for protection at the half strike through February. So yes, they're stopping themselves out at a lofty 30 cents. So I guess if you look back where the stock was at 15 cents about a month and change ago, I guess that looks good. But that just cracks me up on every conceivable level. Mr. Rock Lobster, can you, in your heart of hearts, can you foresee any environment, any market where you would say, hey, you know what? This stock's trading 68 cents. I think I'll pay 20 cents for the half put through February. So would that ever cross your mind?
Well, we have seen in the past, although this might be the most aggressive put purchase ever.
This is a good one.
The one that we thought would never work, but like had a shot, right? Like, okay, Credit Suisse going to zero, like the worst run bank. And really, thankfully, they finally got rid of it. Those guys were just knuckleheads. Like how it got so, I don't know. Anyway, and when I was in college, like they were the gold standard bank. Like in 30 years, they just went to nothing. But anyway, you buy those puts and,
that's it. You buy the puts.
I guess you could get zero out of it, but I think one thing about trading options, when I like tell my students, if you're going to buy options, right? You think about it. What kind of return do you need to get to even justify buying an option? I'm talking about like a trade. Like, if you can't see that you can at least double your money buying the options, like, why buy them? Why buy a call that's going to return has no chance to do better than 20%? Like, you got to have a reasonable expectation of return. Like, I mean, it is possible to get more out of these puts. I just think it's hard for it to actually, for you to realize the dollars. But anyway, this is a tough one for me. Put of the year contender. I think that would give us our crappy put of the year contender. This might be the best one.
Certainly is a good contender out there. It's always weird when we have good contenders in the last show of the year, but this is all the things I love. It's so deeply cynical, yet also ridiculously stupid at the same time. It has all the hallmarks of a quality trade of the year contender, listeners. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to Marqeta Inc., ticker symbol MQ. They call themselves the world's first modern card issuing platform. So they're trying to transform the payments space out there. Trading 374, up about a dime, or about 2.5% today. On the year, it's been completely the opposite story. They're off a little over $3, or about 45%. So it has been a blood red tide for Marqeta, including, looks like, wow. The election was a catalyst for a lot of names to the upside. It looks like it was exactly the opposite for Marqeta. On November 4th, they closed at $6. They opened on November 5th at $3.42. It was like they fell off a cliff. Wow. So apparently the election, not good for this payment processing name. Maybe they had earnings that same day. That'd be strange, but we've seen weirder things. Not having a good run all year, and certainly not. They were just trying to claw themselves back. They went from about 4 3/4 up to about $6 on November 4th, and then they just fell out of bed. Wow. So Marqeta, what's going on out there today, listeners? Looks like somebody maybe thinks the worm is about to turn. Listeners, they said, March 4s, how are they? They got 25 cents at 35, so a decent market, all things considered. And they said, I shall pay 35 cents, good sir, 2,500 times for the privilege of buying these 4 calls through the month of March. The stock was about a little over a dime lower, 362, when they did this trade. So no huge evolution out there. On the stock front, this is a 73 vol, if you are so inclined out there. And you do also get an earnings announcement. You get earnings on February 22nd. So maybe that, or 26th, maybe that adds a little bit of extra grist for this trade, a little bit of extra juice for the squeeze out here. Either way, Mr. Rock Lobster, stock's been taken to the woodshed this year. They're trying to revolutionize payments. Seems like they've only revolutionized losing money. But somebody taking a swing for the upside through March. What do you think?
Let's see here. I have to say, you are doing a good job of picking these little tiny options, little tiny stocks.
You got to get weird. You got to get weird to end the year.
You got to get weird. You know what? I thought we covered MQ once before.
I think we have. The name sounds vaguely familiar. I think maybe you talked about it once. Maybe on Oddity.
I thought we did. And I give you credit on a slow day. You guys are digging for the people.
We work for the people, sir. We work for
you guys are digging for the people. I have to say, though, you know, we have our number one sniff test, and on a slow day, these junk calls are already green, up a dime. So, yeah, I would say a $3.74 stock, March carry paying 35 cents for the calls, with how fast the stock could just go up $1 or $1.50 with no trouble at all. I don't think these are a terrible purchase. Obviously, they're already green, so it can't be that bad, but you know, like, duration is your friend on these things. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad purchase at all. I mean, the stock was $6, $7. So what the heck? It could happen. It could definitely happen.
So Rock Lobster loves these. He wants to spend roughly 10% of the value of the stock to buy the calls through March. He says, buy these now, put all the money in. I think if I could read between the lines for these. So he's liking these. Liking these MQ4 calls. Are you liking these, listeners? Well, stock has ticked in their favor. That does make them look a little better. Still, seems like the stock has a lot of heavy lifting to do. I do want to go see why they got their legs cut off from under them on the election night. That's kind of interesting. Are they virulently anti-Trump? What's the deal? I don't know, but kind of interesting stuff out there. Either way, these calls kind of interesting. Are you intrigued, listeners? And speaking of intriguing, everybody was intrigued by this name. Not too long ago, it took over our network for a while. The Flowmaster was all in on it. I talked about it being one of the best names we've ever seen come across our tape here on the long 18-year almost history of this network. This is indeed Wolf Speed. Yes, the return of the wolf. What better way to go out this year, listeners, than one last bite of the wolf? I can't even say it without laughing again, listeners. Yes, the most ridiculous name on the planet is back. We did a little digging. Turns out it's not quite as sexy as the name implies. Probably why they went for such a ridiculous moniker. It's the old Cree light bulbs. You know, Cree light bulbs. Not the sexiest thing, but when you rebrand as Wolf Speed. Just laughing again. I can't say it with a straight face. It is the most ridiculous name we have ever talked about, which is why I love it. Talked about a bunch of call paper in the past. The Flowmaster talked about a bunch. We paid all that off already. I think most of it kind of went the way of the dodo. Wolf Speed came and it went really hard, listeners. But who knows? Maybe the wolf is back. Let's go find out what's going on. Is the wolf biting again? Or is the wolf just kind of dead in the corner, being gnawed on by vultures? Let's find out. 688 off about 41 cents or about almost 6% today. So not looking good, leaning towards the vulture category. And on the year, listeners, man, yeah, the wolf has been taken to the woodshed. $43.25 a year ago, $6.88 today. Not that far away from its 52-week low of $6.10. And we were last talking about it. I think it was back in the September, October timeframe. It got up to about $16 in mid-October. Had a bit of a run, and then they kind of just fell out of bed. No love for the wolf. I think the wolf is lying on the blood red snow, being gnawed by vultures as we speak. Listen, so a rough year, off 84%, or $36.36. Man, that's a hard one for the wolf. Stifle Financial Corp just dumped a bunch of shares this morning. Lawsuits coming up. Oh yeah, none of these headlines look good for the wolf, listeners. But you know what does look good? Someone said, the hell with all that. Feb 10s, how are they? And they got 60 cents at 70, and they said, damn the haters and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. I shall pay 70 cents 2,000 glorious times for the revitalization, nay, the glorious resurrection of the wolf. They have until February. They get earnings. They get earnings in that time frame. Earnings are on January 29th. Still, listeners, 70 cents. That is a 142 volatility. Man, they are paying up for the wolf. Worth noting, this is a short sale restricted name. Oof, that's a bit of a rough one. Mr. Rocklops, we've talked about the wolf before. None of it really paid off. Is now the time? Is the 15th time the charm at the end of the year here, sir? Are you down with these folks going back to the wolf?
Well, I think this is one of those ones that it was a stock at one point. It was $130 in the 2021 go-go meme. Throw all money at green energy solutions days, which is now anyway. It's a $6.90 stock. What can I say? It could reignite at some point. The company could be profitable again. So, I don't think these are, they're not terrible options to buy going out to February. So it's got a chance. Although these are not green on day one, which we don't like. But I mean, it's got a chance. Any of these, there could be some revitalization, in energy grid and all that. I think it could happen. So we'll just maybe the next administration spends the green energy money better, and so a company like Wolf does better. So It's possible. It's possible. But not a terrible. I mean, again, not a terrible purchase in a volatile stock. Again, 10% of the option price, but when the underlying volatility is like 100, 150%, 10% option price doesn't mean too much. So
gun to your head.
It's got a shot.
Gun to your head. Are you going the Wolf? You going MQ, or you going those oh so delicious opt to puts for 20 cents?
I had to say, gun to my head, I'm going to go for the Marquetta calls.
I had a feeling you'd go for those. Yeah, those seem to be, if any of these can be called reasonable, those seem to be the most reasonable of the bunch. Which ones are you going for, listeners? Are you riding the Wolf once more, maybe to oblivion? Are you going to go the MQ way, or are you going to go for the opt? Deeply cynical. I hope you don't go for those 20-cent puts. Let us know, listeners, for this final odd block. Man, what a wild year. Don't worry, we'll pay off some of the wild trades on future episodes. We'll have look backs on the year and some of the trades that really resonated for us. If there are certain trades or trends, I know some of you have written in with some of the trades we talked about that you guys traded and did well. If you have any of those that resonate to you, maybe ones you liked, ones that just stood out to you, maybe ones that didn't work out for you, hit us up, let us know, as we keep on going into our final strategy block of 2024.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, it is time for the final strategy block. I know I have a single tear in my eye, too. It's sad. But the final strategy block for the year. Uncle Mike, what you got for us, sir? Take us home.
It's the final strategy block for the year, yes, but it is not the final strategy block. We have done, probably, 50 a year over 10 years. We've done over 500 strategy blocks.
Name your favorite right now. Go.
The one I'm about to do.
Oh, there we go. Good answer.
The strategy that I think is very important, whether it's trading, investing, whatever way with which you want to look at it, is the fact that you need to reevaluate things. And this being the final strategy of the year, one thing that I do every year is I like to look back on what I did during the year, what I did well, what I did poorly. Some people do it more frequently, some people do it less frequently, but I like to do it annually. And the reason is that some things that seem like a great idea, you need to give them time to make sure that they work. And you also need to pull the plug on them when they don't work. And I've done both of those things throughout my 20 years in this business. And I think that's very important. You have to be able to adapt with change. The one thing is constant is change itself. And I think that's very true in both the trading markets as well as just life in general. And you have to be able to do those things. And so ways with which I like to do it, I like to look through old trades, old statements, things like that, things with which to see what I was doing, what I was thinking, why I was doing it, benefits, drawbacks, and things that I want to take with me into the future. There's ways with which you can backtest strategies, but there's really nothing that's going to substitute doing the strategy itself. And so the benefit of hindsight is that you can see where you were and what you did. You can also address the feelings that you had and why you did do something a certain way. So the main strategy that I want to emphasize for the last day of this year, as markets are a little bit less voluminous, not necessarily slow, like I say most of the time during this time of year. They're definitely not slow. But one thing that I think you could do to take advantage of maybe a little bit of extra time around the holiday season is to reflect, look back, see what you did, and figure out what you want to do. Final strategy block for 2024.
I think the people who bought those puts we just talked about should reflect. As we keep on rolling into our final segment, it is time to go around the block one final time for 2024.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, as we're coming into the end of the show, it seems like markets are pretty much unched from where we were at the start of the show. Most of the major indices still off about 0.6%. VIX cash still hanging out right around 1685. So we haven't really moved much at all since really a tick since we started the show, which is kind of odd in this era of all sorts of whipsaw-y goodness. Speaking of whipsaw-y goodness, we saw a lot of back and forth on our question of the week. Last week, we asked you folks, hey, a lot of options traders been caught up in the iBit frenzy. Are you one of them? Quite simply, have you been lured to the dark side of crypto options through iBit? We saw a lot of people coming in on all different levels. The three responses we gave you folks were, yes, I'm on the dark side. No, not yet. Or I'm crypto curious. Or crypto just isn't for me. Back and forth on all those different ones. A lot of write-ins as well. Noel Smith, who's been on Vol Views a few times, says iBit paper is great. He likes trading it. Age of Del Aquarius says trading those options sounds like painting your windshield black and getting on the expressway with nothing but your GPS to guide you at 100 miles an hour. Way too wild of a ride for me at the moment. So he's definitely in the Uncle Mike camp. Then we got our resident comedian, Mr. Vernon, says, hell no, I prefer my investments like my jokes, solid and not likely to disappear overnight. Besides, the only dark side I'm interested in involves epic space battles, lightsabers, and masked villains. I think we can all get behind that. Listeners, you folks weren't behind. At the end of the day, the Uncle Mike crowd, he infected you out there because 44.1% of you went crypto, not for me right now. 29.4% coming in at number 2 saying, yes, you have been lured to the dark side of iBit. I know a lot of you are going that way. And then 26.5% of you saying, you're not in yet, but you're very crypto curious, so you want to dip your toes in the iBit waters. So if you add all those up together, slightly over half of you are saying, yeah, you're in it right now, or you're kind of curious about getting in, and 44% saying not quite for you right now. So very split audience out there, which makes a market, which is kind of interesting. Getting out to our question of the week for this week, our final, not penultimate, but our ultimate question of the week for 2024 listeners. Very straightforward one. Quite simply, which asset class do you feel has the most upside potential in 2025? Again, we are limited to 4 choices. We couldn't do everything. We couldn't do energy and ags and just about every other dairy, whatever the hell else, lumber, whatever you want us to throw on there. We got limited to 4 choices on Twitter, listeners. So we gave you equities, fixed income, crypto, and indeed volatility itself. Controversial, I know. Some folks still don't think it's an asset class. A lot of people do. We trade it all the time, so call it what you will. It's very tradable. Those are our 4 choices for this year. As always, we say if you don't see your choice, just write in with your alternate suggestion. And right now, I would just say it's kind of interesting what is running away with it in the early voting. This just went live right before we started the show, listeners, so it hasn't even been live an hour. Let's go out to the Rock Lobster first. Sir, of those 4 choices, equities, fixed income, crypto, or vol, which one do you think has the most upside? Or maybe you have a different choice you want to write in. And then B, which way do you think our audience is going? And C, what are you keeping an eye on for our final around the block of 2024, sir?
I would say I think the audience is probably going to go equities. I don't know if anybody is maybe some people think crypto, but I think equities again for 2025. Volatility, I think will be a good performer, but it's not really investable. It's more like you buy some, it goes up, you sell it, and then you do it again. That's what I would say on that score. And I would think for one last thing, I would say just for, on the radar for this week, do we end the year at 6,000? I would guess so. And then we re-roll how things go for 2025. I think a lot depends on how the government actually functions, because we just spend too much money. Congress is crazy, and we're spending as much as like during the COVID crisis for no reason. So that amount of spending was never sustainable, and it wasn't then, it isn't now. So I think that will at least create a lot of short-term volatility, depending on how that goes. And also, one of the easiest things after mentoring people for trading for like the last 15 years is if you're not doing well trading, take out your 3 biggest losers. And if that changes your year, you just have to cut your losses faster. So listen to what Mike said, just look at your trading record. If you get rid of 3 trades and all of a sudden you're profitable for the year, you know what the problem is. It's just you just got to not let a loser go so long. And I found that with most of my students, that fixes a multitude of problems. Anyway, so that's how I would end 2024.
The problem is you suck. That's what the Rock Lobster is saying. Stop sucking.
I don't know if that's the most useful thing to tell people, but
subscribe to his newsletter, How Not to Suck by the Rock.
How Not to Suck. Take a loss quicker.
Yes.
Or as one of my students used to say, who was very smart and successful, lose small.
Yeah, that's good advice to keep in your back pocket, listeners. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is your vote in our poll? Are you going your favorite crypto, vol, fixed income, or equities? Which way do you think our audience is going? And do you have any final words of advice or things you're looking ahead for 2025 you want to leave with our audience?
Well, as much as I want to claim umbrage, because you didn't specifically mention Shiba Inu, I think that's going to be the hot topic for 2025. But since you don't have that, I'm just going to go with equities for me and equities for the audience. So just kind of boring, I guess. I don't know. In terms of final words for 2024, I would just say that, yes, I am long-term bullish. I've said that many times, but just with some hedges that I'm preparing for 2025, I was actually in a meeting today, or just in discussions today, for some of our hedged stuff. I am very short-term cautious, and that's where I'm at.
Let's see where you folks are here for our poll. Listen, that's why I like you folks. Been doing this for 18 years, coming up on our final poll of the year, and you're still full of surprises. You know, it's early voting. Obviously, it's only been live less than an hour. But right now, 69.2% of you all in on volatility next year. So that's our hardcore vol views folks coming out. And then the rest, 30.8% of you all in on crypto. So you're saying F equities, F fixed income, vol and crypto. That's what we're looking for. That's a wild year if that is the case, listeners. So do you agree, disagree? Get over there at options and make your voice heard. Because right now, the vol and the crypto heads are running away with it, listeners. If you're one of those crypto heads, stay tuned. I'll be back in a little bit to talk all things crypto for the final time of this year. What a mad year it's been on the Crypto Rundown. So stay tuned in a little bit for that. And before we go, Mr. Rock Lobster, you folks are dark this week. But if they want to subscribe to your How Not to Suck newsletter, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah. How Not to Suck, 888-TRADE-01. I run a multitude of products at Option Pit, 5 products to be exact. All with incredible winning records. Actually do all the trades myself in real time with real money, trading my own account. Oh my God, who knew it? It's crazy. How could it possibly be you could run 5 different products and they all make money? Oh, maybe 30 years of trading options, who knows? But anyway, if you want to learn how to trade options and see how it's done, come to optionpit.com.
He learned how not to suck through painful experience.
Exactly. You got to learn how not to suck. That's a good way to put it.
Mr. Rock Lobster, are you surprised right now? It just ticked again. Vol running away with it, 71.4%. The Vol views crowd, sir, showing up in spades. 28.6 for crypto. Nobody gives an F about equities anymore. Those are done. That's why I love our audience. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are your thoughts? Crypto coming in hot, 28.6%. That must violate you to your core. And where should folks go if they want to debate your stance on crypto with you?
They can follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. And you can check me out at my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for an advisor who knows crypto but doesn't like it.
He'll buy your Shiba Inu. If you put a gun to his head, he'll do it for you. But he won't like it, listeners. stcharleswealth.com, the place to go. If you want to have the fun of forcing Mike to buy some Shiba, you should do it. Just for that, it is worth doing. You've been listening to this show for a long time. One of the ways to pay it back, listeners, is call up Uncle Mike, say, hey, buy me some Shiba Inu. I think it will bring a smile to your face and to his. stcharleswealth.com. And it is our final show of the year, and the last time we're talking about our friends over there at Public. They've been on the network for the better part of this year. They've been huge supporters of the network. So if you want to thank them back, listeners, public.com/optionblock is the place to go to kick the tires. They came hard for the Options Insider folks in 2024. Pay them back. Visit one of those URLs, public.com/optionblock, public.com/VV for vol views, public.com/optionsbootcamp. All of them work. All of them will get you to the place where you can kick the tires and light the fires on the platform. It also helps to support the network that in January will be coming to you for 18 freaking years. Wild, wild times here, listeners. We're having fun. Are you having fun? Seems like you are. More of you joining us all the time, so we welcome you all. It's our final one for the year. I just got to thank you all out there for making the show what it has been for so long, making our network what it has been for so long. Keep coming. We love you all. Have a great end of the year. Have a great new year. We'll see you back here next year. Another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
If you trade options, you want to be smart about every decision. So why not choose the smartest platform for your trades? At public.com, you can view upcoming earnings dates directly in the options chain. You can queue and execute multiple orders simultaneously. Easily view contract performance over time. And if you have a question about any stock, you can ask Alpha, their AI for investors. But want to know the smartest part of trading options on Public? Earning rebates on every single contract traded. No other platform provides options trading rebates, and they reduce your trading costs to less than $0 per trade. So, make the smart move and switch. The only options trading platform where you can earn rebates on every single contract traded. To learn more, please visit public.com/optionblock. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures and podcast description, U.S. members only. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.